Okay, we will continue our session to our next presenter, who is Professor Iijima Wataru from Japan, Aoyamagakuin University. Whenever you're ready, you can start. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the kind introduction to your person. Iijima is my name, and first of all, thank you very much for the effort of the Korean side, Professor Park, Kyung University, to organize the workshop by the remote style. So unfortunately, we have no chance to meet together, but it is very excellent for us to talk about the COVID-19 from a viewpoint of history. As an historian, I have ever examined the history of infectious diseases in East Asia, so I will talk about something on the COVID-19 pandemic in this year. So anyway, I continue to stay at home from March for half a year. So teaching and the meetings are advanced by the remote system, usually. So I have no chance to go abroad, so including Korea and other districts. So, but now I am fine. And probably I have not been infected yet. So if I talk about COVID-19, I have 3 questions in this presentation. The first question is, what stage now are we in the history of COVID-19? So no one knows when and how will the COVID-19 end. So my suggestion is that now we are the development stages. So according to the 4-part structure of the Chinese poetry, it is very popular thought in East Asia, as you know. So introduction, development, turn, and conclusion. So I may say that now we are the development stage. So COVID-19 started in Wuhan, Hubei province in China in January, and it is spread to Korea, Japan. After that, to many countries in Europe in March. So due to the hard method to control, especially in Wuhan and Hubei provinces, the basic situation in China was getting better and controlled in April. The lockdown, the hard control system in China, in Wuhan, was also finished in the first week of April. So I suppose that in the history of COVID-19, the control of the situation in China is very important. And the stage is changed from introduction to the development. This is my suggestion. This is my basic idea. So after the severe impact in the European countries, including Italy, Spain, and the UK, the situation was getting better in May. And the situation in Korea and Japan were also under control, as the Professor Park already mentioned and introduced the Korean government how to control the COVID-19 in Korea. But the situation in US, India, and some American countries is now ongoing. So especially the situation of US is not good. So we do not know when the spread will end. And as you know, the situation in India is getting worse, also getting worse than those of other countries now. So the situation in China, the first place of infections, now is controlled. So I suppose that now we are in the stage of development. So I heard that the situation of UK is now some changes, quite some serious in this week, is it? So based on some reopening policy and the other some activities of the university students in UK. So now I am very much worried about the situation in Japan because the Japanese government also selected a very similar policy to the UK government. So in the history of COVID-19, so to change the situation, maybe based upon the game changer to turn, the third stage might be the vaccine. So I suppose that the introduction of the vaccine is very important element, and the vaccine should be the game changer of this history. But we are very much worried about we do not know when and how does this turn will start. So I want to ask other scholars, where are we now in the history of COVID-19? I would ask some of the suggestions and impressions from other scholars in these sessions. This is my first questions in this presentation. And the second question is, does the COVID-19 change a society or not in the perspective of a history of the infectious diseases? I suppose that this is the very big and also very important questions what historians should answer. But I am very sorry, my answer is not so clear and non-committal. So one answer, this is just one answer is yes. The pandemic of COVID-19 exactly now changing the world of the changing the world, such as the economy, the politics and world order, and cultures on the personal basis. But as you know, yes, Prime Minister of Japan also resigned. One of the main reasons for his stress was on the failure of the anti-COVID-19 policy, I suppose. So to control the COVID-19, the basic method all over the world is to decrease the chance to meet, talk, be together. But as you know, these kind of actions have been the basic elements to establish a civilization. If we do not meet, it will be very problematic. If we do not talk, it is also very problematic. This means that the COVID-19 needs us to change the basic behavior in many senses in our history. So this kind of remote meeting system, it is very, very good way to communicate, but it may change the method of international conference like this. So, but it is not the same as the face-to-face communication, I suppose. So from a viewpoint of this, also one answer is yes. And the COVID-19 exactly changed everything. But I am wondering, is it true? So yes or no, it is very difficult questions in this the point. I am also conservative. The other answer is no. The COVID-19 does not change everything, does not change anything. So the anti-COVID-19 campaign is very similar to those of the anti-Spanish influenza pandemic or 100 years ago. So as we know, a huge number of people were dead by the Spanish influenza pandemic. In the history, this pandemic, this kind of pandemic, is really change a society or not? This is a big question. So in those days, many people wear a mask, and many restaurants, shops, museums was also closed. But after the pandemic of the Spanish influenza, at the second decades of the 20th century, did the society was changed or not? So maybe the correct answer is no. So some scholars discussed about the IT or AI will play a very important role in this sense. So probably yes, COVID-19 will support the change of the society. But we should confirm the COVID-19 itself do not change the society. human beings, we will change the society using the COVID-19. It is another story. So from this kind of view, COVID-19 did not change everything. So, but human beings change the society, economy, and culture by using the impact of the COVID-19. So on this point, I would like to know more the suggestions of in this sessions. I'd like to ask more in these sessions, the basic impressions. The third question is the case of Japan. So why do the Japanese people accept the self-restraint and the control of the COVID-19? This is my point. So after the pandemic in the Wuhan and Hubei province, the Chinese government selected severe lockdown as the main method to control of the COVID-19. Why the lockdown in China was a success? Huge economic support by the other cities and provinces and high concentrations of medical staff, including military doctors and military nurses, the personal monitoring system based on the mobile phone. This kind of the system was already, Professor Park already discussed the case of the Korea. This kind of the monitoring system played a very important role. So the detail should be examined more in other chances. So it is likely to say that the Chinese system must be standardized in other countries because we do not have a good drug and a vaccine yet. So my point is how to make a comparative analysis of the situation in many countries and how to examine the case of Japan. So as you know, from the number of the patients, death rate, and other indexes of the COVID-19, the situation of Japan is not the most successful case, as the same as Taiwan and Vietnam. But also, it is not the failure cases as same as the US. The Japanese government declared the emergency statement from April to May, and the Japanese government asked the Japanese ordinary people to change our behaviors, stay at home. And the Japanese government did not select the lockdown as the same as China and other European countries. So from my point of view, the Japanese government cannot do as same as the other governments because the community health care system is very weak now. In this 20 years, the resources and the manpower of health posts in the community level is very much decreased by the political reform. For example, the PCR tests in China was organized in the community health center in Wuhan. That this kind of shows where is the testing post in Wuhan cities. I suppose that there are so many testing posts in China and the Wuhan cities. If we compare with the situation of Japan, the community level, the capability of the testing in the community level is very weak. And now, this is my suggestion. So example, community level, the Japanese government do have the systems to organize the health control now. In the 20th century history of Japan, a lot of community health posts and community health workers played a very important role to control tuberculosis and other couple of endemic diseases. And this is a very successful story at the 20th century. But the community health system and the community health post is closed under the change of the epidemiological structures and the political reforms. So in Japan, it is very fortunately no SARS infections and no MERS as Professor Park discussed the cases in Korea, in Japan, no SARS infections and no MERS infections at the decades of the 21st century. It is very fortunately, but the power of the community health system has been decreased because no infection of the SARS and the MERS. So the medical system still worked in Japan. It is very lucky, but from a viewpoint of the public health, now the Japanese community health is very weak. This is my another suggestion. So as a result of this, main methods of the control of the COVID-19 is self-restraint. So no regulations and no fine. But too many people in Japan accept the government demand and change their behavior. In June, number of the patients mildly decreased. In July and August, the index of the situations was not much better by reopening the activities, but the situation is probably controlled by self-restraint. So the main method of the anti-COVID-19 in Japan is self-restricting. The jishuku in Japanese, it is not easy to transfer to English and other languages, including Chinese and Koreans. The background of this action is a traditional Japanese discipline, and it is sophisticated, but not easy to continue for a long time. So frankly say, I am very much tired for long years, for 6 months. So why do the Japanese people accept this kind of the self-restraint? My answer is a social pressure to do as the same as the persons. Docho atsuryoku in Japanese. So peer pressure in English. And tonji yari in Chinese. So I want to know this word in the Koreans. So this is my presentation. I should stop here. So I have 3 questions in my presentations. So I would like to know the impressions of other scholars. So thank you very much. I will stop here.